I don't know if you caught this today, but Joe Biden gave a speech, as he does very often, being the president of the United States of America. And in that speech that he gave today, he mentioned gun control. He mentioned going after our guns. Leftist activist, WNBA player who nobody heard of until she came out today on Twitter and said that America is trash. Isn't that sick? What kind of a country, what kind of a person are you to live in a country that gives you hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in a sport that nobody watches, in a sport that nobody goes to watch except for their relatives and some friends in a very small community, you know, of people that like women's basketball, and attack it? The country that blesses you and enriches you. We'll also be talking about fireworks. And is it okay for you to blow them off in your yard with your kiddos, or is that bad? Verboten, and what the best fireworks shows are. But first, you know, we have more information about the mass shootings in America overnight. I mean, folks couldn't even get to Independence Day without shooting folks at Como Fest in Fort Worth, but also in we call it Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. You know what's amazing? Joe Biden talked about gun control today, but you know what he didn't say? He didn't say anything about 2 mass shootings with mass deaths. He did not say that. He did not talk about that. Here's what he did say today. Sorry about that. Let's try that again. Here's what he said today.
With your help, we passed the most significant bipartisan gun safety legislation in 30 years, but it's not nearly enough.
And he says, so more gun control today.
Congress needs to step up, pass common sense gun safety laws to protect our kids and educators. And by the way, arming teachers is not the answer.
Yes, disarming us is the answer. Now, not thugs who are shooting people down in the streets of Philadelphia and Fort Worth and across America, but us. We have 8 people killed, several others injured in 2 mass shootings today, well, from last night, in Fort Worth and in Philadelphia. And Joe Biden today talked about gun control. He talked about taking away our rights to fire rifles and to own our rifles, our AR-15s. But why didn't he talk about Philadelphia? Why didn't he talk about Fort Worth? I know why. They don't check the right boxes, do they? They don't check the right boxes. And you know what? We just saw pictures of the suspect that was arrested in the Philadelphia shooting. It is a trans man who says he's a woman, who wears women's clothes, and is a BLM activist. Wow, Joe! Another transgender terrorist! Another transgender terrorist, Joe Biden, that slaughtered people in the streets, and you're not saying anything about it, Joe. Why not, Joe? That transgender terrorist, the second one in recent months, Nashville, you don't want us to see that manifesto, undoubtedly, most likely a screed against Christianity and hatred for Christianity, attacking the very church and Christian school that her parents had her enrolled in as a child, went to. Come back and kill. Which is what the enemy does, to rob, kill, and destroy. Seek, rob, kill, and destroy. And so this transgender terrorist, the second one that Joe Biden says nothing about. It does. He is. This is so nakedly fake. The whole thing's fake. You know that? If he doesn't say anything about this mass homicide, we know who the accused killer is in custody. One person who was literally cornered in the middle of the shootings by Philadelphia police. And the New York Post reporting just this evening, this was not out earlier today, just this evening, that it is the gunman arrested for the Philadelphia mass shooting, which left 5 dead. 5 people dead in a mass shooting, who had, by the way, an AR-15, had a scanner on him, and had a pistol scanner, an AR-15, and a bulletproof vest, is a transgender man who says he's a woman with women's clothes who's a BLM activist. You didn't hear anything about it from Joe today, but he talked about gun control. You know what that really means is that he does not care about gun control. He doesn't care about guns. He doesn't care about taking guns off the streets. He cares about getting elected and having power. That's all. And taking away our guns, he likes to do, but it's really about power and ginning people up for support. He is nakedly false and hypocritical. This is from the New York Post. Rifle-wielding suspect who donned a bulletproof vest before allegedly shooting dead 5 men and 2 children in Philly has been identified as a Black Lives Matter supporter who shared gun-toting memes on social media. Kim Brady Carricker, 40, nabbed shortly before the bloodshed in the city's Kinsessing neighborhood Monday night, Philadelphia Inquirer reported. On his Facebook page, he posts 2 pictures of himself wearing a bra, a woman's top, and earrings, his hair braided long, 3 months before the shooting. Regularly posts about supporting BLM, Black Lives Matter. He shoots up an African-American community and is a BLM supporter. Isn't that great? What the heck is this? Joe says nothing. This person doesn't check the right boxes. It didn't happen. Gun violence is only real when it happens at the Allen Mall. Not when it happens at a Christian church in Nashville with a transgender terrorist there. And nothing about Fort Worth. Did you hear Joe say anything about Fort Worth today? Nothing. Why? Didn't check the right boxes. Does he not care about communities of color? Why does he ignore this? You tell me. Why does Joe Biden ignore when communities of color have massive real gun shootings and murders and slaughterings and mass shootings? Why does he say nothing about it? Unflippin' believable. And because he doesn't say anything about it, so my question is, why doesn't he say anything about it? And number 2, does that make him a hypocrite? 800-288-WBAP is our number. 800-288-9227. Casey and Sherman, you're on WBAP.
Well, good evening. As to your question, why he doesn't say anything about it, I think it's because he's an idiot. Also, I'm not so sure that the 4th of July and gun control talks are a good match. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the last time I checked, Lexington and Concord occurred because the British were coming to confiscate weapons. That's kind of like British gun control. I'm not sure that's a really good timing for the speech.
You know, I have a meme up there. I don't know if he's an idiot. I think he just wants
he's an idiot.
Okay, he's an idiot. That's fine, but he's not an idiot with what he said here. He didn't say anything. He said gun control today, but nothing about freaking 5 people murdered in Philadelphia and 3 others shot, and 3 or 4 people murdered in Fort Worth, and I think 8 people shot, and he says nothing. It's because he does not want to stop violence. He doesn't want to call it out in inner city neighborhoods. He only wants to call it out in places. This makes him, to me, somebody who has an issue with he's lying to us and he's a hypocrite. So, but I love what you said. I love it. I got to roll, brother, but I love what you said about Independence Day and our guns are what freed us. They're literally what freed us from the British. And by the way, today the British had to work today. There's a picture of George Washington on horseback with his sword pointing, saying, enjoy your day at work tomorrow. Brits, it's British. Hoorah! Okay, and Joe talked about gun control, which is a joke. And he talked about we need to take away assault weapons today. He specifically mentioned them and how they work, and it'll bring violence down. That's a lie. I will prove it coming up next on the Chris Krok Show on News Talk 820 WBAP. Okay, so Larry Krasner, the leftist DA of Philadelphia, where 5 were shot and killed and 3 were hit. And then, of course, that was last night in the terror, is a transgender man who is a Black Lives Matter activist. According to the New York Post, he had bulletproof vests, AR rifle, just like the transgender terrorist in Nashville, we have 2 transgender terrorists now that are mass shooters, mass murderers, and mass homicides with AR-15s, and Joe says nothing about them, right? Nothing about the transgender terrorists, only about people that check the right boxes for him. So these shootings in Philadelphia and Fort Worth with all these deaths didn't happen. It's not on Joe's record. It didn't happen. Joe doesn't acknowledge them, but he did acknowledge going after guns today on our nation's Independence Day, which was a great point from our caller from Sherman in the last segment. Why do you think why does Joe Biden not say anything about these shooters, these mass homicides, mass shootings in Fort Worth and in Philadelphia? 800-288, and is he a hypocrite? With his whole calls on gun control. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. So in Fort Worth, we had 3 people shot and killed and several others shot as of this afternoon at 4:15, and the Wall Street Journal covering this, all of our local media covering this. So I watched, and you can see the video on my Twitter feed at Chris Krok Show. That's at Chris Krok Show from the Como neighborhood in Fort Worth. You can see the people, and it's just terrifying and terrible. They're just scurrying and clamoring and running in one direction. They crouch, they're taking cover, and then all of a sudden, maybe 20 seconds later or 10 seconds later, more shots coming out from a totally different direction. They run around and fall over the place trying to get down from the other side. It's really sad. But don't worry, Joe's there to protect them and back them up. No, he's not. Anyway, Larry Krasner, the woke DA for Philadelphia, blames it on Republicans. Isn't that great? He blames a transgender terrorist targeting people of color and a community of color who is a Black Lives Matter activist, shooting and killing all these people. He says it's disgusting, the lack of proper gun legislation we have in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. It's disgusting that you can go to Jersey, find a list of wholesale reasonable gun regulation we don't have. Delaware, blah, blah. So he wants more gun regulations. Well, sir, we have 30 shot at a block party in gun-controlled Baltimore, July 2nd, I think it was, or 1st. Let's see, today's the 4th, 3rd, 2nd, 1st. July 4th. We had 30 people shot in gun-controlled Baltimore. From Breitbart, this says Mike Bloomberg, affiliated Everytown for Gun Safety, ranks Maryland the number 8 state in the Union for Gun Control. Gabby Gifford's gun control group pointed out that Maryland has a red flag law, universal background checks, high-capacity magazine ban, strict regulations, ghost guns, assault weapons ban, licensing requirements for handgun purchases, among other controls, and they still have thugs shooting and killing people on the streets. It's sad. It's sick. 30 shot at the block party in Baltimore. And then you got this in Fort Worth yesterday, and you got the horror in Philly yesterday. And of course, Joe Biden says nothing about 3 mass shootings. By the way, you think gun control works? They know it's a lie. Krasner knows it's a lie. Let me explain why and how. I have a fantastic article, 2 of them, one from Breitbart as well. The DOJ's National Institute of Justice, DOJ's NIJ, issued a report noting any impact on the assault weapons ban, which is no such thing as an assault weapon, but any impact on the assault weapons ban had on crime was negligible, the Department of Justice says. And Joe says it was effective. It works. I heard him say it today earlier. Corinne Jean-Pierre, his chief, his Baghdad Bob, if you will, Baghdad Bobette, I guess, says, you've heard this president say, I'll just repeat what he said, when he was able to get this done in the 90s to ban assault weapons, you saw it have an effect on lowering violence in that first 10 years. However, Washington Times quoted University of Pennsylvania professor Christopher Coper in 2004, the author of the National Institute for Justice report, saying we cannot clearly credit the ban with any of the nation's recent drop in gun violence. Indeed, there has been no discernible reduction in the lethality and injuriousness of gun violence. The authors of the NIJ report observed, quote, the ban's effects on gun violence are likely to be small at best and perhaps too small for reliable measurement. Not even a dent. They further explained the assault weapons ban was not impactful because assault weapons are not the firearms choice for day-to-day criminals. Joe doesn't care about the inner-city violence and day-to-day criminals in and outside of the cities. No, he wants to use flashy things that fit and check the right boxes, but he ignores the ones that are flashy that don't check the right boxes, like today with Fort Worth, Philly, and the other day with Baltimore. On October 2022, Breitbart reported FBI figures showing that over 2 times as many people were stabbed to death. 2 times as many people were stabbed to death with knives and cutting instruments than were shot and killed with rifles of any kind. Why don't you care about the people that died more than 2 times than rifles? Why would you not care about knives and cutting instruments? Breitbart News reported in 2013 the assault weapons were tied to less than 0.012% of deaths in 2011. Not even 0.1% of a point of how many deaths in those.
0.0.
Yeah. Less than 0.012% of U.S. deaths in 2011. But that's okay. They're the bad ones. Speaking of which, how about cars? You may be forgetting this act of terrorism in France. I got to tell you about that. Plus, a judge orders Biden officials to limit contact with social media companies and cocaine found in the White House.